This video will be looking at another tense in Greek, the imperfect tense. Last week, we saw these two paradigms and we were talking about the present tense. You might remember we were talking about the present tense. This first paradigm here, o eis a omen eteousen. O eis a omen eteousen. This was our primary endings that we used, and we used these last week on present tense verbs. So you could have luo, I loose, lueis, you loose, luei, he, she, or it looses, luomen, we loose, luete, use or you're loose, and luusen, they loose. That was the active voice. I am loosing, you are loosing, I'm actually doing it. Present tense. But we also brought in a second set of endings. If we wanted to change the voice and we wanted to say something in a passive way, we would use this second set of endings. Luomai, ignore this one for the minute. Luomai, etai, ometha, este, ontai. These are our second set of primary endings, but we use this when we want to say something in a passive way. I am being untied. You are being untied. He, she, or it is being untied. It's still happening in the present tense, but it's happening in a passive manner. The action is happening to me. Both of these are present tense. And what we didn't talk too much about last week is the fact that present tense doesn't just mean present time. It also means the fact that we're communicating the action from an internal or ongoing manner. Internal or ongoing. And what I mean by that is if I said, I am running, I'm not concerned with when I started running, when I finished running. I'm not concerned with what it means externally to have gone for an 8-kilometer run. My concern is the internal aspect of that verb. It's something that I'm currently doing, and I'm communicating that to you using this sort of ing language. I am going, I am running, or I am being hit, I am being loved. I'm talking about it as though it's not just happening in present time, but it's happening in an ongoing, incompleted manner. So this is what we call the imperfective aspect. Now, if you want to know more about the imperfective aspect or verbal aspect in general, I've made a separate video that you can go and watch. But all I want you to take away just for the moment is that when we are talking about the present tense, I'm going to use this symbol. And the focus is on the fact that the action is not only happening in present time, but I'm thinking about the internal aspect or the imperfective aspect, incomplete, ongoing. These are the sorts of words that I'm bringing to mind. Internal, incomplete, ongoing. I am running. I was being hit. So, present tense. Present tense. So we looked at luo, I am loosing, or I loose. And today we're going to think about the imperfect. What I mean by imperfect tense is that I mean it's something that happened in past time, but it still has the same aspect. What I mean by that is I describe it internally. So I was loosing. I haven't told you when I started loosing. I haven't told you when I finished loosing. I'm just describing it as though I'm standing there and I'm still doing it, but it's something that happened in the past time. The focus is on the unfolding of the event, not the completed event. Again, go and watch the other video if you want to try and understand a little bit more about verbal aspect. Okay, so the meaning of the imperfect tense, the imperfect communicates ongoing action in the past. Imperfect tense, ongoing action in the past. I was loosing. I was running. I was loving. And the way that we actually signify that something has moved into past time in Greek, past time, is we put on an epsilon. And this epsilon is telling me that we are now in past time. So here is my present tense, eluete. My present tense is luete. Remember luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete. Luete, you are loosing. You currently are loosing. But if I wanted to put this in past time, so now I want to use the imperfect, I want to add this epsilon to the front, and it's no longer you are loosing, but we're in past time, so it's you were loosing. The focus is still on the internal aspect of the verb, the ongoing nature of the verb, or the incompleted aspect of the verb, progressive aspect of the verb, but now we're thinking past time. And the same is true, so this is our active voice. You are loosing, you were loosing. Same is true if I want to use my passive voice. Luametha, we knew luamai, lue, luetai, luametha, lueste, luontai. Luametha, we are being loosed. It's something that's happening to me, passive. Something that's happening to me. We are being loosed. This is present passive. What about if I wanted to talk about the imperfect passive? If I wanted to talk about the imperfect passive, I would now need to say something like, we were being loosed. It's past time, but it's still got this ongoing, it's still got this progressive manner. We were being loosed. And again, this is passive, so that's why it's something that's happening to me. It's not like the active voice where I'm doing the action, but the passive voice is something that's happening to me. So the imperfect aspect is the same as, the imperfect aspect is the same as the present, which often signifies a progressive action. So how do I form the imperfect active indicative? Is it just a simple task of putting on this epsilon? Well, sadly, no. That's not all that there is. So the imperfect active indicative, we start off with the stem of our word. So think about my word luo. The stem of my word is lu. Remember, we would never see lu written anywhere, but it's the basic building block of the verb, and it's what we then add things onto. So lu, what am I going to add on? I'm going to add on a connecting vowel, and then I'm going to add on my personal endings. eluomen. And then I'm going to add on my augment. Remember, this little epsilon at the start is called an augment, and it's what tells me that it's now in the past time. Past time. This augment is telling me that we're in past time. If I didn't have that augment, luomen would mean we are loosing. The augment is telling me that we are in past time. We were loosing. We were loosing. But only some of the endings are the same. These two here. So the omen and the ete are the same. The rest are actually new endings. They're new endings. And they're what we call our secondary personal endings. And they go like this. On, es, en, omen, ete, on. On, es, en, omen, ete, on. On, es, en, omen, ete, on. And if I was to put these onto my verb, it would look like this. Eluon, because remember we need to have this epsilon at the front because this is our augment to tell me that I'm in past time. Oops. Past time. So eluon, I was loosing. Elues, you were loosing. Eluen, he, she, or it was loosing. Eluomen, we were loosing. Eluete, yous or y'all were loosing. And eluon, they were loosing. Now, one more thing just to make your lives even more difficult. You'll notice here that I was loosing, first person singular, and they were loosing, third person plural. They and I are exactly the same. I was loosing, they were loosing. They're both written eluon. And so the only way to know the difference is context. Context. So this here is the second group of endings that you need to learn. Last week we looked at o, ace, a, omenete, usen, and we used these for our present tense. And my, a, tai, ometha, este, ontai, and we used these for our present passive. And now we're going to learn this third set of endings, on, sn, omen, ete, on, and we're going to use these for the imperfect. And then there's a fourth and final, you'll be very pleased to know this is our fourth and final set of endings. And this fourth and final set of endings, sorry, I've accidentally drawn over this here. Oops, sorry. Let me go back. Oops, clear markings. Oh, wait a minute, let me take off the pen. There we go. Clear. This fourth and final ending is here. And it goes like this. Omain, ignore this one. Omain, u, eto, ometha, este, onto. Omain, u, eto, ometha, este, onto. I would say out of all the endings, this is probably the endings that students find the most challenging. Out of all four sets of endings, these are the endings that you see the least commonly. And so again, students don't get as much practice with these ones, and so they do become the ones that students tend to forget. Something that is, slightly helpful about these particular endings, again, our first person plural and our second person plural are the same as what we saw over here in our primary endings. We've got that metha and that s there again, so at least that's familiar to us. But the others are new, and so it's just a matter of committing these to memory. So if I was to put these endings onto a word, say like luo, it would become lu, and then I'm going to add my ending omain. And so we know luo means I loose. We know the passive of luo would mean I was being, sorry. We know that the passive of luo, which is lu oh my, is I am being loosed, present tense, I am being loosed. If I move over here and I use these endings, now I'm thinking past time. And so luo main would be I was being loosed. I was being loosed. It's something that's happening to me. So it's passive. It's something that's happening to me. And it's something that's happening in the past time. So luo main would be I was being loosed. Luo would be you were being loosed. Elu eto would be he, she, or it was being loosed. Elu o metha would be we were being loosed. Elu esther, you all were being loosed. And elu onto would be they were being loosed. So here is our passive, and past time. And this is our present passive. This is our present active. And this is our past active. So they are the 4 endings that you need to memorize and use and practice with, because once you have these, you have all the endings that you're going to need for the indicative mood. All the endings that you're going to need for the indicative mood of verbs are here. So commit these to memory.